Hi, everyone. Today, I want to introduce you to Kristen, who is an experiencer and a contactee. I receive a lot of stories, your stories. I read them all, and they are all amazing and interesting and incredible. Unfortunately, I cannot reply to them all, but there are some stories that I think should be shared with the whole world. Not especially because the person went throughout a horrendous abduction or stories like this. Unfortunately, there are too many. But sometimes there's one story that stands out because this story brings us hope and brings us the testimony that we are not alone and that amazing, beautiful beings exist somewhere. So this is the story of Kristen. Kristen, how are you? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Elena, for having me on your show and giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate that. I'm doing well.
Well, Kristen, thank you. I am very appreciative of your courage because I've been there the first time telling my story to the public. It's quite like heart beating and, you know. So yeah, you're a musician. I see a guitar behind you. I know you're an adventurer. You've been working in fitness also, and you travel a lot. You like all the adventures and going to beautiful place. How did your story begin? What was the first thing that happened to you? Can you please share with us?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it started in Boulder, Colorado in late August 2006. It was this knowing that I was going to be traveling to Hawaii. And I can't tell you how I knew that. I just, this is how my soul works. It leaves breadcrumbs about 2 weeks, 6 months out, and I just follow it. And this is how I knew. And then I had these strange synchronicities in Boulder where I saw 2 Hawaiian license plates, which never happens. It was just very strange. And then about a week later, I had 2 friends called me and said, would you like to go to Hawaii? One was going to the Big Island and the other one was going to Maui. And I had a business full time that I was running at the time. So I just didn't see how that was feasible, but I was just like, just go. Like, don't think about it, just do it. So I booked the flight. And then the next week I was off to Hawaii. I was off to Maui with my friend. She was there for a work trip and I stopped off at, wait a minute, let me back up. That morning before this event happened. So it was when I sent you the story, let me back up. When I sent you the story, the title was The Flash in 2 Hours of Missing Time. Those are 2 separate incidences on the same day. So I just want to clarify that. Prior to that happening, I was a pretty normal person. Just when I say normal, I mean like 3D only. You know, I had some experiences that I didn't really talk about, but I was not somebody who was like woo woo out there. You know, I love nature. I mean, that's why I love adventuring, everything nature. But it was not the mystical stuff had not hit me yet until that. And I was probably about 33, 34 years old when this happened. So I dropped my friend off and she was doing something for work. We had a rental Jeep. So I drove back to Kihei. I got a cup of coffee and I remember having my snorkel gear with me and I was all ready to go. I was like going to hit the, you know, the water. I wanted to see what was in the ocean. Never been to Hawaii in my life. And the woman behind the counter said to me, she goes, yeah, I mean, I said, where can I see sea turtles and what's the favorite, you know, local snorkeling places to go? And she gave me very, very specific directions to Ahihi Bay, which is just a little east of Kihei. And I just got back in the Jeep and I remember just being really caffeinated. I drove for, I don't even remember how long now, but I passed the sign for the reserve, the Kenowa, Ahihi Bay, and then I hit the dirt road. And then I knew I was going the right way. She told me all of this stuff. And then she said you would miss, there was no sign, but you had to look for a parking space that was really small at the time. So I found it and I parked, I got all my stuff out of the Jeep and I started heading down towards the ocean, and I was like ready to go. But when I looked out, it was violently crashing against the waves. I was like, no way, I'm not going in the water. It was going to be a suicidal, going in and not coming out. So I said, okay, I'm going to just take a walk across the lava field, because there was this wonderful, like, it was one of the last lava flows, I guess, in, I don't even remember, 1,000 years ago. But it was, if you've never walked across a lava field, it's like, whoa, there's energy, pulling up from that, and it's hot. But so I walked for probably a couple miles, like probably 2.5 miles. I don't know. It was on the other side, and the waves were like, there's a lot of cliffs out there, and took a lot of really cool pictures. And I noticed it was like 1:15, and I was like, okay, I got to pick Kimberly up at 5. So let me walk back. Well, this is when it gets weird. So I was walking back, probably almost off the lava field at that point, and I ended up, sorry, it's hard to look in the camera and talk. I think, sorry.
No problem.
I was just off of the lava field, probably pretty close to that, and then all of a sudden I just looked back. I don't know what made me look back. I turned and looked around, and that's when it happened. It was this was like an intense flash, and it was like, I just went out, like everything just shot out of my body. I felt like I left my body. And the last thing I remember was looking at the sky. And then the next thing I remember is I was standing on another planet. I was standing on another world, another planet. It was like red rocky cliff, similar to Maui, because it had the ocean behind. It had this, I won't call it an ocean, it was a body of water. It could have been an ocean, it could have been a lake, it could have been anything, but it was big. The sky behind it was, oh, go ahead.
No, yeah. I have a question before you keep on with the description. What did you feel physically in your body? Did you feel any particular sensation in your body in this flash?
I have had the feeling of astral travel going out of my body before. I don't like it, but that's what it felt like. If you know what that feels like, it was not. I understand where you're going with that. It was not. I don't feel like I stepped through physically. I did not have a physical transference of my molecules onto somewhere else. It felt more. It was my astral body that left. That's the only way, or my consciousness. It could have just been my consciousness, but I don't feel like I fit. From what I've heard, that wasn't what I experienced. There were no pens and needles. There was nothing like that at all. It was just like I was literally I was here, and then I was here, and then I was like, whoa. It was absolutely just magnificently beautiful. The sky was like this purple, blue, like nebula behind it, and the star, it was a blue star. I remember it being like this bluish purplish star, and it looked like a very late sunset on Earth. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm pointing over here because that's kind of how I saw it in my mind. So I was standing here, and it was the star was over here, and the ocean was just like, well, it was down here, and I'm just looking out at the scene. But really what struck me about that was I felt like I was home. It was a feeling of just absolutely, I know this place. I'm getting chills talking about this. Wow. Yep. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was an emotional experience, because it was a feeling of just being totally connected to everything, connected to the star, connected to the ocean or the water, connected to the rocks. It was like no separation. And that was probably the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that in my life. So it was a profound, mystical, soulful experience that I had. And this lasted maybe you don't really know time in that space, but it felt very fast. It was like the time of no time, and then I was pulled back into my body. I was just basically, and when I came back, it felt like I'd been struck by lightning. So I fell forward to the ground. I was on Maui in my body, and it was an extreme pain in my head and my chest. I couldn't breathe. It had knocked the wind out of me. And I couldn't see. So I was like on all fours looking between my hands, and I can't even see my hands. Can't see the rocks. I can't see anything. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was dying. It was probably close to like what would feel like a near-death experience if you were having something like that happen and you're perfectly healthy. And then my vision came back, my heart and my head started to clear up a little bit, but it was like those those Polaroid cameras, the old ones where you take the picture out.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about? That's how my vision returned. It went from outside in. It was almost like this opaque whitish. It wasn't black. It wasn't like I was blind. And then suddenly my vision came back. So whatever it was like like how when you have a light that hits your eyes and it blows your retinas out. That's kind of how it felt. And you're like trying to adjust your eyes and you can't do it. I had all of that going on. And then I'm just basically, I just start sobbing on all fours on the ground, remembering my home, remembering the feeling, remembering what that was, and not knowing it. So the takeaway from that experience was that there's intelligent life on other planets. I just knew that. It was like a knowing that I had been there. I had lived there as a human or as some kind of intelligent being. And two, that Earth is not my home. And three, I want to go home. So those three things hit me really hard. And that's what just caused me to sob uncontrollably. And then I guess, once I was able to kind of like manage myself, it had put my last 3 decades of my life in context to the point where my last 30 years, 3 decades of my life was like revealed why my family never felt like my family, my real family, why I felt like an alien on this planet walking around. I never quite felt like I fit in, like I was always on the outside looking in a lot of ways, like an observer. Even though I was a participant in life, I was very much active in my own life, participating. It just felt like I was observing, and I could never really bring that through. I could never really bring all of me, like it was forbidden somehow to bring all of me forward into my life, because it would be misunderstood or whatever. It just explained a lot of things in just that fast, just a flash. So yeah. I just pause for a moment?
Yeah, no, Kristen,
yeah.
you're very, very brave, and I really, I know what it is to tell this out for the first time. And what you say, there's thousands and thousands of people who feel like this and who cannot explain it, feeling, and I felt it as well, feeling not to belong on Earth, to belong to somewhere else, and this somewhere else, it's in the night sky somewhere, and feeling your family, biological family, is not really your biological family. Thousands and thousands of people feel that. You've got an answer. You've seen it. You went through to me, to my understanding, it was a portal throughout. You projected your consciousness. Would you agree with that, or you feel it's a different process?
I have tried not to put any explanation to that, because I just don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I guess I'm my own skeptic. I am one of the best skeptics out there when it comes to things like this, and especially when it's something subjective like this. So I'm gonna probably tear that apart. And I did. I looked for so many explanations and nothing fit except this ET phenomenon. And I didn't go looking for this straight out of the gate. It was not something I was looking for explanation for. I was looking at this as a mystical experience. It was not I was abducted by aliens or contactee. I wasn't trying to make up a story about what happened. It was just, this is what happened. So if I did happen to go through a portal, awesome. I went through a portal, but I don't know if I did. and not to negate my own experience, because that was real. That was absolutely real. It was as physical as I'm sitting here talking to you, being on that other side, even though I wasn't in my physical body, but everything around me felt very physical and very real, real time, not like somewhere in the past or I was dreaming it up or making it up. No, this was very, very vivid, real. Yeah.
Did you see that you had a different body? You were in a different body on this other planet, or it was just pure consciousness?
I couldn't actually see my body. It's like if you're looking out, I could have probably looked up and looked at my hands maybe, or, looked down, but it was almost like I couldn't even turn around. Like I thought about it later, like wow, I could have just like turned around. There could have been like a city behind me, you know what I mean? Or like life behind me, because I was looking out at a body of water. But it's almost like I couldn't. It's like I was just basically stuck there in that moment and then brought back. And I don't know if that's because if I was to step left or step right, that I would have been out of that portal you were saying. I don't know how those things work. I honestly don't. So,
yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't have any recollection of that. Yeah. Just seeing what I saw. That's all I saw.
Wow, I love your approach. It's the best. It's the best because you really stick to your experience and the fact, and that's how we best memorize, something that happens to us without transforming it. That's brilliant, really brilliant. And I know it's not that was just the start. You had other experience as well.
Yeah, that day. So that was the flash. So once I was able to actually stand up and regain my composure and balance and all of that, I stood up and looked out at the Pacific Ocean. And the feeling that I had standing on that planet for that world, I had standing on Maui. It was the same exact feeling. It's the first time I'd ever felt that standing on Earth, was this feeling of just total connectedness, absolutely no fear. So the person that walked across that lava field, that did not want to get in the water and was afraid, was not the person that got hit with that flash and came back. I was literally like, had no fear at all. And something told me, you will be safe, you will be protected. And I really wanted to go in the ocean. It wasn't just my ego wanting to go in the ocean. It was like something was calling me to go there. So I did. And I started walking down, it was a cliff, not a cliff, that's not the word, rocks, lava rocks. I had to go down to this beach. It was probably about 100 feet away. And I was putting my mask on, then I put my fins on. You have to walk backwards in scuba fins. They're like this long. So if you try to walk forward in them, you're going to get plowed by and the waves were still breaking really hard. So I probably looked really funny looking over my shoulder, but there were, it's like what's basalt? What are volcanic rocks? I don't know. Pumice. They've got bubbles in them, and they're black, and they had these sea urchins that like to live inside of them. And they had these spiky things that like to, so if you were to, let's say, step back on one of those when the waves are coming through and then it breaks off, you've got now a needle and a poisonous one at that in your heel. So that's what I was worried about. And then getting pummeled by the waves when I went in. When I was walking backwards, I was worried about hurting them. The feeling of like, oh, I don't want to hurt them, I don't want to disturb them. It was like a total compassionate moment of like, I don't want to disturb the ocean by me getting in it. There was no fear, and I'll never forget that moment. I was up to probably about my waist, and I just basically hunkered down. And I just remember, and I don't know why I said this, but it was like, just, please, give me protection, grant me protection in the water, basically is what it was. Show me what it is you want me to see. And then I don't usually share this because it's so bizarre and nobody would believe me. But it happened again, this happened. So the waves came in and and it went out, and I was expecting another crash with the flow of the waves coming in, and it never happened. It just stopped. everything just stopped and went to just suspended animation, like Jello. The water just was like kind of moving in this weird fashion. And I was like, okay. And I flipped over and then I just started kicking out to deep water or deeper water. And in that moment, I was just like looking at a scene of like all these beautiful, colorful fish. And I did see sea turtles finally, you know, so I saw like one or two, and it was like maybe a minute. I was in that, and it was wonderful for that minute that I remembered. And then it was like counting backwards, like I said, from 100 under anesthesia. And it was just like, boom, lights out. And that was the last thing I remembered. And then I woke up and I looked out. The first thing I saw looking through my mask, what I looked up and I was way away from shore and I was in dark, deep water. And I've actually looked up Google Earth. If you Google Earth some of this, Ahihi Bay, you'll actually see the delineation of the depth.
Yeah.
And it drops off really quick. And so I just was suddenly, and then I looked at my watch and it was 4:15. And I know when I put in, it was about 2. And I thought, I don't have any recollection. So my first thought out of my head was like, oh, okay. So I just went to Ahi Bay, took a 2.5 hour nap. Basically, I went out for a swim and snorkel and then just took this amazing 2.5 hour nap. I was like, no one says that. No one has ever done that. I'm sure that's not what happened. So I'm pretty clear. I didn't take a nap on the ocean. But what was even more bizarre, it was when I was swimming in, I noticed that I was warm. And so I've logged probably over 150 scuba dives in my life. So I know my body and I know tropical water. I know how I do in it. I was in no wets. I didn't have a wetsuit on. And I would normally be mildly hypothermic in 82-degree water. If with my hands would be pruned, I'd be cold all over. I was warm, Elena. There was no sign of me being in the water for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And when I got out, I was actually calm, which was, I mean, super bizarre. So my next thought, it was like denial. It was seamless from like waking up, realizing I was in deeper water, swimming back, realizing I was going to be late to meet my friend. It was just all, and not like, wow, what just happened? Where did the time go? You know what I mean? And I have no recollection of it. And that right there, I couldn't wrap my head around. So I think I just filed it away, or my mind was wiped, one of the two.
Yeah.
But the strong sensation that I was, I was definitely visited. Sorry, I'm going to stop right there and just, if you have any questions.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Yeah. What is interesting, pick my question. It's the water that start to change or slow down, and you describe it as it becomes like a jello. And do you think it could be like time dilation, that the time change you went through a like time shift, that can be just that, because maybe at that place there's a kind of a time portal or some kind of type of portal area in this place,
Right.
and you know, a crack in the space-time, something like that. You know, it's very possible. Natural places, sometimes you find this kind of doors, of portals. You could have been also taken somewhere, or you went somewhere, you know,
where and that's the thing. And I've had friends say, well, why don't you get a QHHT session, and get, hypnotically regressed and find out what happened in that 2 hours and 15 minutes. And there is something inside of me that is like very hesitant to do that. And I don't know what it is. I know what it is. Let me explain what happened after that. And that's why I don't want to do a QHHD session, but
yes.
So I spent the next 4 days with my friend. We had a great time. It was almost like I just put that away for a while until a week later, and I got back to Boulder. And I went right back into my life, and all of a sudden the feeling memories started to hit. And I was having, just this feeling of wanting to go home was so heartbreaking. soul crushing like inside. It was just this, and I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know how to describe what I was even experiencing, much less how to tell them what I had been through. You know what I mean? Because I don't have memory of it, except for the 2 hours of missing time. I mean, I'm sorry, the flash. That's the only thing I remember, and where I was. But to try to tell someone who's never had an experience like that, wow, I'm not from here. Earth is not my home, and I've just got this terrible feeling of wanting to go home. And it felt like not just a place, it was also people, beings, you know, family, a connection to a group of people. And so, I don't know, Elena, I mean, it could have very well have been, but that was the last place I looked. So I wasn't thinking, oh, I was abducted or I was invited. It was later that hit me, that could have potentially been what happened. Or you're right, maybe I just stepped into a portal and went somewhere. But why would I have any remembering of it? That's the part that's very fuzzy for me.
Yes, the
Don't
fact
you think you already called? Yeah.
you would have been somewhere else. You would have remembered it. You would have kept the memory. Kept the memory. The fact that you didn't remember is suspicious. That someone didn't want you to remember. That's what's suspicious, you know. And you that's when you were back. Your subconscious processed it apparently, and it hit you harder than at the time when it happened, like the missing of home and of people. So, well, that's just my intuition and my experience saying that you were maybe taken on board a ship, you know, somewhere, and you met with people you are very close to, your family from this other world. That's what I would be inclined to say, that you met with them. They want to make contact with you, and maybe there's this natural door, that natural crack there, portal that allows it, and they, you know, that's why it happened. But this belonging, if it hit you harder, I think more than what you've been allowed to remember happened that day. Would you agree with me, or how does it resonate with you?
Yeah, that definitely feels like there was more that went on that day that was not revealed to me, and it's still to this day. I try to go back and just in meditation, and the last thing I remember, and just through feeling memories or whatever, try to recall, and maybe I would just get a little glimpse of part of that 2 hours that I missed. And I think what happens is I end up in the land of imagination, and it was just, and so I don't want to flood my imaginative self with the actual. And I don't think it was a negative experience either. Even if I was just floating on the ocean for 2 hours, do you know there are rogue waves? There are tiger sharks. There are things that could kill you on the ocean. And I'm like, the thought that I didn't die, was taken care of, you know, I was protected, to be able to come out of that. If in fact, that's all I did. I have a hard time believing that though. Those little details really do matter. Coming out, walking out warm, knowing my body, like being in the water that long for 2 hours. No, you were very unusual.
You weren't in the water. I totally believe you were not in the water during this missing time. You were not.
But the other thing is, like, it went on for about 1.5 to 2 years of just a dark night of the soul was what I experienced. I believe is my life just didn't make sense after that. I was not able to wrap my head around what had happened, and I didn't know where to take it. So I just, and not my professional life, my private life, my relationships, hobbies, none of it mattered. It almost like it didn't have any meaning the way that it did before I left. And so in some ways it wasn't a positive experience because of that, but maybe that's why I didn't remember, because I would have messed up my human experience. You know, it would have been about them, would have been about, you know, something else, and not that linear lived experience of Kristen, you know, so.
Yes, I know.
I think everything's sorry.
No, it's overlapping with the bad internet. If we are not allowed to remember, there's a good purpose to it, is that we wouldn't go through the process of our human lives and what we need to do, what we need to go through. And if I had remembered my story since the start, I would have never gone through all the experience that I've been through in my life, that have helped me evolve and change in a positive way. That's why we're not allowed to remember, because it will mess up the process, the experience, the human experience on earth. And yeah, that's what I think. So yeah. And it seems that it activated you. So this experience activated your awakening, what you just called the dark night of the soul. You were a different person, you felt a different person afterwards. Everything went pitch black, and then you discovered you were going into a new part of your life. Is that what happened?
Yes and no. 2000. I don't have to answer that. It just, none of it made any sense. None of it made any logical sense. In my little box of reality, what I called reality, didn't make any sense. I couldn't put it in that. It had to go in the "it's just nuts" jar. We're not talking about it. We're not going to mention this to anybody. But internally, it was eating me alive, and not being able to really share with anybody. So I went searching for my own answers, and I went to the mystical teachings of religion, indigenous wisdom, and really just as much as that was my context at the time for understanding anything soul-based, mystical, and so that's what I did. And in that process, in 2008, I believe, 2007, 2008, I met Amma, who was I call her my spiritual earth mother and teacher. But I felt around her. I went to one of the programs and got my first darshan, and it was like, this is what I felt standing on the planet that I was on. It was just this feeling of unconditional love. And it was really the first time I had felt an anchor to this world, because I didn't feel it in my family. I didn't feel it in the world. It was like I wasn't seeing it demonstrated in my own life. I don't know that I knew how to do it. So in a way, she had a big part in awakening me, in my soul, because she taught me how to meditate. I had never really been able to sit still more than 5 minutes, and and just growing myself up a little bit, and it's spiritually, but also emotionally. She had a big part of that. And I would go every year to see her in Santa Fe. This was, so this went on for about 11 years, just prior to the, and everything shutting down. So yeah, it's been a journey. 11 years, so I just went back into my life. I think I just went to sleep. That's what happened. That's why I can't answer your question really. It's like yes and no. I met Amma, and then I just kind of went back to sleep. So I was awakened, and then I just kind of fell back in the matrix and did my life, and it was fun. I played in bands, and did triathlon, and I went all over the place. I went to traveling and had relationships, so it was a good experience. But in 2016, everything I started to feel that little knock on the door again, that feeling of something's not right again. And it felt like my soul was calling me out to do the work again. Damn it, sometimes, but then you can't stay there forever. But anyway, I'll stop there for a second. Anything you want to?
Oh yeah.
Ask for?
You told me about a name of a place that you heard, and that's why you contacted me first, because you said that you heard a name of this other place. And would you like to talk about that?
So I was reading your book. Actually, let's back up, because that was the awakening. So should we talk about the rest of the contact before that? But I don't know.
Yes,
Yes,
okay, if
in
you want.
2018, it kind of leads into that, but in 2018, so I had gone through another awakening, which led to an activation, which then everything started coming back. All of the spiritual gifts, the psychic abilities, that kind of stuff was starting to come on board at that time in 2018. But I had asked in meditation, I said, where did I go? I just put it out there as a question during that day when I had that flash on Maui, what happened? And I just listened, and all of a sudden I hear a shot like that. And it was, I don't know if you heard that, but it was a whisper. And I was like, oh, wait, what? Could you say that again? And I heard a Shara. And I thought, did I just make that up? Did I just pull that out of my head? Like, what did but I heard it twice the same way, Ashara. And then, I'm here reading your book in 2020. I pulled this out in part 3 under the Tagative system. Where would it be? Yes, Ashara, right there. And I just, that's what I heard in my head. So this was, for me, like the second confirmation for this. And so you can't make this up. I'm like, you really can't. I mean, you could make that up, but I'm not making this up. I heard it.
What is impressive is that you describe the star. It's a binary system, but the other one is so small, but you are very overwhelmed by the big one. You described very bright blue and kind of a haze nebula around it. Is that how you described it?
Yeah, and it almost even had like purple. Yeah. I mean, I know it's blue, but I mean, that's just how my eyes saw it, or my eye, whatever, my vision I was seeing. It almost had like a purple and blue background behind it. It wasn't all blue. It wasn't like violet, or I don't even know my colors. Yeah. It was like a different color. It's probably a color I can't even describe really here. It was just a different, it's like a blue.
What's interesting is that Ashara is the star Taygeta, and Taygeta is a giant blue star. And where does the purple comes in? Because it's a giant blue star. Well, Thorhan, my contact, was in the Alpha Centaurian system, and there's a giant blue star there. And he was there, and we have this way of communicating by also seeing 3 eyes of each other. And he was looking at a sunset of this giant blue star in the sky, and it was all purple. The sky was purple. And especially down closer to the horizon, like purple.
I'm getting chills.
Yes.
Chills right
so it's not Taygeta, it was Alpha Centauri, but Taygeta is also blue giant. And you said you were watching the sunset under behind water, and it was purple. And makes me remember a few months ago, I saw a blue star setting in a purple sky somewhere else. So probably it's the spectrums of color that it does when a blue star probably sets. Astrophysicians could better explain that. But and did you say about a haze or nebula kind of type around it?
It's like that. Yeah, it wasn't like a normal sky, like a blue clear sky. It was almost like it had nebula, gases or something in the air. It was catching colors of light. And that's probably, it's like our clouds. If you look at clouds and at a sunset, they turn red or they turn pink or orange. They just pick up the gases around it, right? And it pops. Or whatever light spectrum. Yeah,
because when you are in the Pleiades, wherever you are, you see the gases of the cluster, because it's a star cluster, and there's a lot of stars still in formation, and you have all these gases. It's like in a nebula, kind of. It's not proper nebula, but it's gases. So when you are in any planets in the Pleiades, the sky is not clear, not even at night. You never have a pure black sky with white dots on it. Never. You have always this blue, violet, bluish haze behind, because that's the gases of the cluster around everything. So, I mean, you can't make that up, um, that's what, just wow. Mind
I
blowing.
know, that's why I was like, this has got to be confirmation, because I heard the exact same thing. It was, in my head, I thought it was ASHARA, but the way you spelled it was ASHRAA, which I thought was a sha'ada, like it had a different pronunciation, but that's how I heard it.
Yeah, well, the names I've written in my book is how I heard them, but that's Thorhan pronouncing them, but other, it's like accents, other races, ETs can pronounce the same name differently. So there's always it's not set like this. I can pronounce it differently.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Where was I going with I don't know how much time we have, but I just wanted to get to the the awakening.
Of course, okay. No, take the time you need. So
thank you. I don't know.
What do you want to talk about next?
11 years. Okay. I don't know. I was thinking the 2017 thing happened, and I saw that okay, so back up. I was living in Boulder, and I was driving from Golden to Boulder like I normally do on Saturdays, and it was on 93 during the day at about 2:00 in the afternoon, February 3rd, 2017. Again, another reality buster. I see a white orb about 100 feet across, sitting above the mountains, and I was about 2 miles away from it. And I'm driving. And if you know that area, which I mean, anybody that knows that area, it's hilly. So it's super hilly. You're in the foothills driving along the highway, and it's a 2-lane road. And I was driving due north. And so at 2:00, the sun was south. I was just sitting like here and blinding me. So I thought, my first thought was not UFO, not even a little bit. I was like, wow, whatever that thing is, it's like super bright and it's reflecting the sun behind me. And I thought, okay, well, that's what I'm seeing. It's either a plane that they forgot to paint. It's just the super metallic thing, or it was, this is, whoa, or it was something like that. But anyway, but by the time I got close enough to it, it had dropped down. So the mountains there were about 7,600 feet from, and I was at about 5,400, and it had dropped down below the mountains. So it was probably at about, I don't know, 7,000, 6,500 feet from the ground, from where I was sitting. And so anyway, I'm driving north, and I hit there's an intersection there that's right across from Rocky Flats. It's a super fun site now, but it used to be the plutonium site for when they would or whatever. Just an aside. But I'd look over, and it's about probably 100. Oh God, where was I going? A half mile, excuse me, about a half mile from where I'm sitting. I have my window down, my sunglasses down by my nose, and I'm just looking at this thing, and it has its own internal light source. And I went, that is not a plane. That is not a helicopter, a drone. What is it? Is it a UFO? I mean, really? Am I seeing a UFO that close during the day? And so my logical mind was like, no, there's got to be some explanation, right? So and then it went poof, and it just dematerialized in front of me, and I went,
wow,
whoa.
That was a UFO.
That was a UFO. I'm sorry, people, but that's so. Of course, I'm thinking, mind blown. This just happened, and now I'm driving home. And probably that evening, I went and just looked on YouTube. I was just looking for answers, like, wow, what was that? And did anybody get it? I was driving at 55 miles an hour, so there's no way. And I had cars behind me, and I had cars going this way, and there's like a little baby shoulder, so there's no way I could have like ripped off and pulled off to slow down to see what it was. I just kept going.
Yeah.
you know, but I was hoping that someone had gotten film footage or something of it and captured it, and nothing. But that was the beginning of, wow, why don't you look in this direction
Yeah.
for what happened to you in 2006? So that became a whole new search. And then it just was like, whoa, all of these contactees, abductees were talking about missing time. And I'm like, well, I have missing time.
Hmm.
And then I was like, no way, no, you know, this is my skeptic coming out. And I just kind of went with it. And the more the research I did, I was just thinking, this is too weird for words. But then I had that guy showing up at my work, and he was, anyway, I'm going to stop. I'm just going to full stop for a second. Anything.
Yeah, because the story about this guy showing up at your work, that to me is I'd say the best. I love it. But before, yes, this thing, oh my God, when I read that, I went, oh, wow.
Okay.
But yeah, no, just this UFO, so it was very silvery shiny, isn't it? Very silver metallic, you said?
It was an orb, and it was emitting like very glowing white light.
White light.
Yeah. I didn't see, because that's what I thought I would see. So if it was the sun, I don't know if you've ever had that happen where, you know, if you're going due north, something is going to cast a shadow, and then you're going to see the silhouette of what it is, right? At some point, when you reach the point of right up on it, and the sun's behind you, you'll see it. It'll turn black. It'll be like, and then you'll be like, oh, that's a plane, or so whatever. I was expecting that. I thought, oh, it'll reveal itself what it is. It never did. It was still an orb. When I went right up next to it, it was the same spherical shape. I'm saying 100 feet. It could have been, you know, the mountains are big there, so it's the relativity is hard.
Yeah.
I just know I was at least a mile from, not even that, I was probably under a mile from the foothills, tagging the foothills with my hand and coming back. So it was pretty close from where I was driving anyway. Yeah. But it was an orb for sure. I don't know if it was just kind of interdimensional, kind of in and out, kind of phasing in and out. I don't know.
Yeah, they have a way to either cloak or either shift dimension or density. So one or the other. Usually they cloak, and the fact it disappears suddenly, like that's no other options than UFO, I suppose. It's like these same people, like your kind, your family was trying to say to you, hey, don't forget about us. Just try to remember, you know. I'm always told remembering is activating. You need to remember yourself. You can't be told, otherwise it's not the point. So that's a whole, when you remember something, it unlocks stuff in you. That's
why do you think that is? Why do you think that they, I mean, I think I know the answer to that, but why do you think that is? That they don't come down? And I mean, it sounds like you had your memories recovered.
Well, I had, yes, I had a missing time when I was 9 years old, when I was abducted and rescued. That was so traumatic that the good ones who rescued me, the good ETs, they were the ones who blanked my mind, my memory, because it would have been too traumatic for two reasons. First, that the trauma of the abduction by the Greys, and they did very bad things on me, would have really messed up my life, you know, that would have been horrible. But also the fact to be rescued by these tall, blonde, beautiful beings, I would have never wanted to have a relationship with anyone ever on Earth. You know, I wouldn't have, like, they're going to beat me up. Nope.
Yep.
So if we don't remember, there's a purpose. It's because we need to live our life and experience what we are meant to experience, you know, even what we've chosen to experience, I believe, before we come, you know, that serves a purpose. And yeah, so to me, it was in 2018 when my good friends came back and said, "Oh, we're going to give you back your memories," and that was the start of my dark night of the soul as well. But the memories, they unlock it, but I start to have these horrible dreams of abduction by grace. The memory was coming back. This was horrible, and I was so grateful I didn't have these memories while I was a child and a teenager. It was like, so hard. And because I was ready and I was mature enough, I suppose. um, and then I decided it was too painful to have that through dreams. I didn't want to go to bed. So I had to do it my way, hypnosis. That's why I went through QHT to got this missing time back, and it worked. It's scary, I have to say. It takes courage. But when you've got to do it, you know it's the right thing to do. You do it. So, would you like to tell about this man who showed up at your work, or there are things that happened in between before?
Well, like I said, I did that just rabbit hole deep dive in the internet of things around UFO and paranormal, and Project Camelot was one. And but all I did was put in UFO Boulder, 27 February 2017, and then boom, and just this long list of things. And when I was listening to people's testimony and stories, I was like, oh my God. And, like you said, it's when you hear people share their stories, it's activating. There's something about it. There might be a memory. There might be something in there that you just don't even remember about your own story. And it just starts to activate again. And it kept bringing me back around to the 2006 and the missing time, and then standing on that other planet and being like, wow. And then hearing about, people in the secret space program and how, and I don't think I'm SSP, don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying that those testimonies of being, teleported. And in other words, if you don't even know that technology exists, how are you going to wrap your head around your own experiences if you go through something like that? So for me, it was helpful to hear, wow, there is more to reality than we've been told. So that was an awakening in a lot of ways. So that, and then probably a couple of months later after that sighting, I was at work. I was working in a gym down in Denver and teaching boxing and CrossFit and just all the kind of I don't know, having fun. But I just remember it was a Sunday, and there was like maybe a few guys lifting weights, and then my friend who was on his laptop, and my coworker who was in the front. And I was walking out of the office just into the gym, which was about a 5,000 square foot space that we had with boxing bags and heavy bags and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he was standing probably about 50 feet from where when I looked out, and I was like, I don't know that guy, like, huh? And so I usually would go up and just introduce myself because I'm the instructor, right? So I was like, yeah, let me just go up and introduce myself and see what he's up to. And as I'm walking up to him, I'm like, oh, okay. So he had he was darker skinned. He looked human, and from all intents and purposes, he was human. Had a kind of like a V-neck shirt on, kind of like what I have, but it was white. It was long, so he had kind of long sleeves up to about here, longer sleeves. His skin was like almost like a reddish brown. I still to this day cannot tag it. It's like if you can put think Mayan and I don't know, Ethiopian or something, like not white, I'll say that. But he was not African American. I couldn't tag where he was from, like his genetics. I was like, this is really strange. He was 5'9", but what really struck me, and he was in jeans and sandals. So he was dressed like, walking in Denver in April. And it was a fairly warm day. Didn't see him come in, and I walked right up to him, and his eyes were gold, like the color of metallic gold. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, no way. And at this point, I'm standing probably 15 feet away from him, 12 feet away. I'm walking towards him at this point, and he kind of had peripherally this way, and then I could see he was sort of looking this way, so 45 degrees. And I caught his eye, and then I was thinking, no way, nobody has eye color like that, in my head. And he just turned and looked at me like that. Like he just did this really quick boom, we locked eyes, and I was like, and I just felt like he had heard that. It was the weirdest thing. Like, did he just hear me? Did I just say that out loud? That's really rude, And then I walked up to him and I introduced myself, and he said, oh, what happens here? This, what happens in this space? I really like this place. And I thought, really? Like, you've never been in a boxing gym? You've never been in a gym? Like, he was built, the guy was stacked. I've never seen, like, his collarbones, his traps were like going over, his pecs were going over. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. My hair, his hair, I'm sorry to do this, but when I say it was thick, I don't know if you can see that, that's like 20 strands of my hair was one shaft of his hair. So he didn't have dreadlocks. What he had was very thick shafts of hair that kind of spiraled. And I looked at him and I was like, are you a unicorn? Like, what? And he was beautiful. Of course, he was drop dead beautiful. Had never worked out a day in his life, but looked like he had been lifting weights his whole life. But anyway, I walk up to him and he was just like very polite, very like, yeah, what happens here? So I'm answering his question, and I'm like going through my spiel of what we do here. And all of a sudden it felt like he was in my head, Elena. It was like, I've never in my life, I've never experienced anything like this, but it was like, not this, not that, not this. Whoa, too much information. He was inside of my head pulling out stuff, and then he went this, and then tell me about that. Like, it was
Wow.
very strange. So, and then just out of nowhere, I'm like, oh, let's talk about this gene patent that I had read about 2 weeks ago. It was a white paper from an article about Monsanto and the food supply, and why it's a really good idea to eat a plant-based diet, but particularly organic, and not be doing GMOs or any of that stuff because of this new technology. And I read right through that. I was like, oh, this is about depopulation. I shouldn't say that on there. But anyway, it seemed like that was what was going on. And so that's what we talked about. It became, for the next 5 minutes, we were talking about a plant-based diet. I asked him if he ate meat. He said, no, I've never eaten meat in my life. And I was like, but you look amazing. Like, how are you building muscle? He's like, plants have protein, But when I mentioned that to him, this is the weird thing. When I mentioned that to him about the gene patent, he said, I know. That was what he said to me. He's like, I know. And that worries me too. And I went, you're like, I don't even know you. And first of all, I don't talk at that level with people at work. I wouldn't have not talked about something like that at work. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't have come up. So it was a super bizarre conversation, but he was in my head. And that's when I started to get like, whoa, okay. He seemed like he was in a hurry. I don't know how to explain that, but he was just like, come on, let's get to the point here. Let's just get to the point. Like, what is your hurry? That's kind of rude, like, don't get out of my head. But I was also hearing him speak telepathically. He was actually, there was a lot of noise going on in the environment. There was music. We had guys crashing weights. So it was hard to hear in there, but I could hear him like 5x5 pitch perfect in my head as he was talking. So I could hear his mouth move and hear him in my head. And that was weird. So it was almost like an echo,
Typical.
So I just was like, all right, what's that?
It's typical. It's
like,
typical.
Oh,
they do that. It's weird.
Yeah.
The first time Pleiadians do that, they speak verbally, and in the same time you hear them in your head. It's disturbing, but you get used to it.
Okay. Maybe he was Pleiadian. I don't know. He definitely had just an intense aura or energy around him, and it seemed like when I got into I was probably standing 3 feet away from him. So we were, in terms of distance, probably about 3 feet away. And at that point, I was starting to feel just uneasy. It was just an uneasy feeling. It didn't feel warm and fuzzy. I'll say that. It was sort of like, wow, okay. So I just kind of stepped back and I was like, well, it was really nice to meet you. Please stay and, do whatever you need to do. Or, if you have any questions, let me know. I was trying to be very polite, but I needed to get away from him just for myself, because I didn't know what the heck was going on. He was in my head.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
I don't hear voices very often, So anyway, I backed away and went to the office, and I was just literally like, what the F just happened? And I couldn't explain it. But my coworker did not see anybody coming in or out of the building when I asked him. He was in the front. There was only one way in and one way out of the building. Now, this is where it gets weird. I asked the guys lifting weights. They could see me just fine from their vantage point, didn't see me talking to anyone. Now, can you explain this to me? Why? I mean, they should have been visible. He should have been visible to everyone.
Yes. So he was visible only to you. But there's a quite interesting question that comes to my mind. Did your coworkers saw you talking to an invisible person, like to the void, or did they see you talking like this to invisible?
Okay. So those were the guys lifting weights. My coworker was in a separate part of the gym, which is the entrance. So it would have been like a separate foyer, like when you walk in, and yeah, and he probably didn't see me, but if he didn't see someone walking in, it wouldn't have even flagged him to look in the gym. And the guys, that was why I approached the guys lifting weights. I said, did you see me? And I described the guy. He had gold eyes, a point shirt, and they looked at me like, huh? No, didn't see a guy with gold eyes. Are you okay? Like you're feeling okay, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm crazy. That's how it felt. It was like being gaslighted a little bit. And so when he left, and I don't know how he would have left and no one would have seen him, unless he just beamed himself in there and beamed himself.
Yeah, which is possible, and which is possible as well. He made himself visible to you only, obviously, because he was in a specific frequency that only you could see, because you probably are of the same frequency, same probably family group. That's what I would feel and explain. Maybe this person was someone very dear, very close to you, maybe a partner, maybe
yeah, I didn't get that feeling from him. It wasn't like I felt attracted to him.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He was very beautiful, but it was not like a feeling of like, oh, I know you, or a soul. Does that make sense?
Yes. So yes, but he was definitely someone.
And I tend to not do that, romanticize people at work. You know what I mean? Like people that come into the building. It's just not. I don't do that. Yes. But I didn't feel that from him.
Okay.
But it felt very scientific. Felt very scientific. Like his it was all very mental, not heart-based. He felt very mental to me. It was very just like in the head. Let's get to the point. Like that, and not wow, like let me share my emotions with you, or does that make sense?
Yes. So yes,
that's what he was putting off. It was much more scientific bent. Like he wanted information, or he wanted to relay information to me. He seemed to know what I was talking about when I mentioned the Monsanto patent, the gene patent, or whatever it was, and he just seemed to know all of that. Really weird.
Yes. Yeah, that's quite amazing. This
super weird.
Yeah, this race, it can be. Well, it can be. I know there are races like this in the Vega system in the Lyra constellation, but there's this thing with the Pleiades, and you said he had brown, orange kind of skin, and he could have looked Mayan, or this kind of physiognomy. There is these old stories that there were Pleiadians who were ancestors of some Native American tribes.
Wow.
Yes. These people don't interact with Earth anymore. They were an colony of Pleiadians, but they're still around. So I was wondering, maybe it was these guys, and thinking also that maybe I'm wrong, but that's a theory. Why not? Possibility. And they, and then it's very difficult to tell when it comes to human galactics. It's difficult to say, except some very strong genomes like the Ahil, for instance. But it's difficult to say sometimes from which race or which planet they are, because they breed with each other, they mix, and you have hybrids and different. Maybe you can have someone from Era who is dark skin, because he has different parents, so you can't really tell who is from where when it comes to humans, so it could totally be from the Ashara system. That would be my take on it. And someone who knows you, maybe you worked with him, or I don't know, with kind of a team then.
Well, that was probably 5 months before the activation happened. And what happened from that little interaction was me going completely vegetarian and vegan. And it was not, it was a process, of course. The conversation we had, I kind of put it away and I didn't really think about it. I just thought, wow, that was weird. But I just noticed, like, I would eat and I'd have meat on my plate and I just shove it to the side. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I had no taste for meat. It just literally, it was like disgusting to me after that. I couldn't eat meat, and it wasn't an ethical thing. It was a taste thing. It was like, I couldn't taste, I didn't want to taste it. Chewing it, like it felt disgusting to me. And that's never been me. I mean, I was never like that before. And now suddenly I had this change in my physiology where I was like repulsed by meat. And now I'm going through this, apparently what would be considered an activation, because it felt like on every level, something was getting changed or altered. That's the only way I can describe it.
I totally agree with you. That's exactly what I would think, because it probably helped you to took you on the path to do that, to become a vegan or vegetarian, because to help you shift your frequency, and to activate your and shift your frequency higher. But I noticed, that's for myself, but I know there are a lot of people who relate to this since I went through this awakening, and I start to really shift my frequency. My frequencies changed, and I start really to communicate with higher and higher stuff. I can't eat meat anymore. I became sick. If I eat meat, even if I want to eat meat, I'm instantly throwing it up. The body doesn't want it. And the expression that comes to me is frequency poisoning. It's
Yes.
And probably wanted to drive you this way, like, you should do that, because that'd be good, you do that, that's going to help. What do you think?
I think that's later, it made sense by about 5-6 months later, when it was full on like activation. So and maybe some people have gone through this and know what I'm talking about, or maybe I'm just the only one. I doubt it. But it was I'm doing my life. I'm doing training and personal training and doing fitness classes, and I'm in Boulder, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of training a client, and I'm getting heartgasms. I'm literally having these experiences of, like, I call it heartgasms. It's the only way I can describe it. But like the sternum, like behind the sternum, I'm getting this pressure, this pushing, this pressure that's coming out, and the vibration. It was like, ah, and I'm like, and it wasn't painful, but it just felt really disconcerting, because you don't know why this keeps happening. And then I get these energy surges, you know what I mean, where it wasn't like a hot flash. I want to be clear about that. It was not like a hormonal hot flash feeling. It was coming up the back of my spine and then back down. And it was like zinging back and forth. And and then my heart's doing this thing. And I don't know what's happening to me. And I'm just like, you know, and I'm at work and I'm trying to be, I had to physically like, move or shake or do something. And my client's looking at me like, what are you doing right now? And I'm just grabbing weights and I'm going to put them over here. It was really, really annoying because so what it did is it pulled me out of my social life. I couldn't be around a lot of people at that time. So I was already doing the quarantine long before this happened in 2018. And so for about, I don't know, 8-9 months of that, it was just, I couldn't be around a lot of people. Yeah. And so yeah. And then the other part of this was water. I want to talk about water because that was huge. Drinking water. That was the instruction that I got was like very clear, clean, clear water, anything, make lots of it, not too much of it, but more than you think you should, being in water. So I was swimming 2-3 days a week. I was paddleboarding. I was jumping in the creek, which was freezing cold, and it was in South Boulder, coming right off the mountain. So it was really cold. But that was the only thing that would ground me, because there were days I'd get up and I just literally feel like I'm going to come out of my body if I didn't know how to ground that kind of energy. I had never in my life experienced, and I wasn't eating meat, which is super grounding.
Yeah.
So now what do I do? Yeah. So I had to figure out how to manage that. But so I did a lot of earthing. I used to do that where you can take your shoes off and walk on the earth and put your hands on trees. And, but it was more than that. I started lifting really heavy, which was super weird, like really heavy things I had never thought I could lift before. And that was really grounding. So I was trying to find things. We talk a lot about ascension, but not a lot of people talk about grounding. And I think that it's really important if you are going through something like that to know how to ground that energy, to hold it in your physical body, because it can be very disruptive. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's like a tree. It needs to be a balance. A tree, as it grows the branches, the roots grow in parallel. It's exactly the same volume in the sky and in the ground. And when we ascend, shift frequency and just remember who we are and attune to our true nature, and this awareness that just unfolds, we need also to ground. As much as we go up, as much we need to ground, because we are meant to be on this earth, on this planet, to work here and to perform a mission here that is personal to everyone. But it's not about leaving the body and feeling all light and stuff. We wouldn't be here otherwise. We're here. We need to deal with it, and just to stay grounded. That's very important. And the water is a very important medium in the shift, frequency shift as well. But I know when you change dimensions or you jump in time or through portals, water comes really important, because you need to drink a lot of water, because water is a medium, it's a fluid that facilitates the shift, the transition, the transfer from a frequency to another. I don't know the details how it works, but I know water is super important to drink a lot of water. So reminded me that. What do you think?
Yes. And it was, I don't know, it wasn't like a voice, but during that whole time, that 8-9 months of just, I felt like I was in school. I felt like I was in a big university of learning about things that I had never learned about before. And it was like deconstructing belief systems, deconstructing ideas, and then putting it back together in a way that made a lot more sense. That's the only way I can describe it. My brain, there were parts of my brain that were actually talking to one another that had never talked to one another before. My right, my left sides of my hemispheres of my brain. And I was like, so this is how you think. This is how you actually use this quantum resonant computer that's between your ears. And prior to that, we're conditioned to think that it's just all linear and it's left brain and it's got to be logical. And it was like, I'll give you an example. So one of them was I just remember the first week of it was, it's like, now we're talking about time, the nature of time. And I was like, okay, whatever. It wasn't quite like that, and I would get up and get a cup of coffee. I would do my morning. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm kind of cross-legged on the couch. And all of a sudden I'm thinking about, oh, what do I want to do today? Okay, it's Saturday. I'm going to probably, and I started doing the laundry list like I would normally do. And all of a sudden, boom, it all happened. I went in 4 different directions, and I'm standing in the superposition of me in the present moment. And I saw all of the outcomes of those 4 different timelines of me getting up, going to the bathroom, me getting up, going to the kitchen, me going, and so it was about choice. It was about time. It was about, we don't realize, like, just a simple thing of like, oh, I just picked this bottle up versus, or we hit 3 red lights, you know what I mean? And we're like, darn it, why am I not hitting all the lights? And there's traffic or something, and you don't even realize, like, that could have just saved your life. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
but it was mind blowing because I had never, it was simultaneous. It wasn't like, oh, let's look at this timeline, then let's look at this timeline. It was all at once. And I'm looking at it from like the top down. And I went, how did I do that? How was I able to see simultaneously everything of me splitting off 4 ways? It was really trippy, and just things like that would happen, and I couldn't explain it.
Yeah, I think that's a natural things our brain normally do when we are activated. When the lock is out, taken off. Yes, and that these are natural abilities we do, and we should do. And that has been unlocked with you, and in many people, I believe. And I believe, these, there's something also, I know that by Thorhan, who is a Ahel Pleiadian, they can do that as well. They can see ahead 5 days, 4 to 5 days, well, corresponding Earth days, because we speak in Earth days, then I understand, better, easier for me. They can look 5 days ahead, any decision they make, he said. So it sound very, very much like what you described. He didn't say about timelines, but it's really the same thing. He said, when I want to take a decision, I know what's, I can see it unfolding in 5 days time. So that's interesting too. They can do that. And there's this Pleiadian component in you. Probably, I mean, you are. You are from the Ashara system. I mean, that makes sense. And these people, yes.
The body. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you are from there. You are from there. That is, to me, it's you take it or not, but that's how I would explain and feel that you are from the star system, Ashara. And yeah.
I think, and people like yourself who, you're like a, what are those things called? Lighthouses, like on the side of the sea, in a storm, when everyone's like looking around, you're like this, here I am, everyone. There's hope, and it's like you're casting this out because there's nobody that like gets this. And if you said that to anybody walking out on the street, they probably look at you like you're like me, like I was crazy. And but there's been so many people who've had these types of experiences, and I know,
such as you. So yeah, that's it.
Sharing your book, sharing your experience, it's been, so thank you. It's given me the courage to come forward and speak too.
It is so brave what you're doing, and I offered you to speak on my channel for many people to listen to your story, because I am aware, and I know that there are so many people undergoing through the same things of the awakening, the activation, the reconnecting with who they are. And sometimes, you know, it's good to see that they're not alone. Like, as you say, we are all going through this, all the envoys, us who have come into these bodies to help in these times. And it's good to comfort each other, telling stories and how do we go through this and different experience, you know. And I found your experience very enlightening and helpful. And I think you're very, very brave, and you're wonderful. Really, really.
Well, thank you. You are as well. I don't know how to, I've never shared this before. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk about this. I think that's all I have. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
there's a lot more, but you know, yeah, we've talked long enough.
What would be your, I always ask that at the end to people, what would be your advice to other people like us? Any nice words you'd like to say, advices?
Yeah, be kind to yourself. You know, be kind to yourself in this. It's not easy. There were times when I wanted to judge myself really harshly when I was going through these things. I think it's that fear of what other people will think about who I am or whatever. And it was always holding true to what was authentic. And so I think, you know, there's nobody like me. There's nobody like you. There's nobody like you, anybody who's listening to this. And it really is about being true to who you are. And so the world needs you, not some copy version of you. They need you. And so I think it's really important that you stay true to your heart, you stay true to what's going on around you, and make those decisions based on, you know, what your heart tells you, what your soul tells you, not always what your head tells you, but all three of those have to be on board, you know. And yeah, just listen, and you'll be guided to the right people, the right circumstances. It's just, sometimes it's in the waiting that is the hardest part. I think for me, it's been just waiting and waiting. It's like, I'm doing my life, I'm not waiting in that sense, but it feels like, what about now? Like, where's the community? Where are the people? And I feel like it's starting to happen now. It's just taken this long for it to start to come to fruition. So hang in there, you know. But thank you so much for inviting me on this channel. Yeah, your channel.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Really, thank you. And it's true that now the times have come to when we all get together, and finally it's happening. And thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elena.